This is the American Le Mans Series 2008 style. And they come side by side, door to door through Big Ben.
Oh, here we go! Berner looks to the inside, pushes it through. They're doing it again. They're trying to paint there down the straightaway.
Montani takes a look to the inside. The P2 battle side by side into one. Berner leads it, and Montani takes it.
Oh, and Brabham gets the lead, and Timo Bernard spins.
There goes Dumas to defend. Lure pops to the outside. He knows he can do it because he's done it before. He's looking in and out, but no, Taffel.
Brilliant.
Oh, got the lead. Oh, John Field is absolutely dynamite. And Audi 1-2, bringing it home at the Generac 500.
The American Le Mans Series is next on Speed.
The American Le Mans Series teams are constantly being examined, and that's what this is all about, the very best being put to the test over 1,000 miles. This is the Petit LeMans, presented by the totally new Mazda 6. Lee Diffie here at Road Atlanta saying hi everyone and welcome to the very place where it all started back in 1998. It's been 10 years of hard work, hard racing and hard learning to bring us into the beginning of the second decade of American Le Mans Series racing. And here in Georgia we have it all. We have Audi versus Peugeot, Acura versus Porsche, Porsche versus Ferrari in the age-old battle. Fantastic stuff. Indy 500 winners, Le Mans winners and former F1 drivers. We're also making the worldwide racing debut of the Green Challenge, changing the face of racing. But before we get to anything, take a look at this. You are never too experienced to make a mistake on race morning. This is Alan McNish with a heavy contact on the outlap going around to form the grid. The defending series champion, the Le Mans winner, a very accomplished race driver, and that car is damaged, limping back to the pit box where the Audi crew are currently working on it. Our Brian Till caught up with the Scotsman shortly afterwards.
Well, as if Petit LeMans didn't have enough drama anyway. In morning warm-up, Alan, a problem out there. What happened?
Basically, on the outlap going towards the grid, I accelerated a little bit coming down through the S's, and the car spun and went into the wall, reasonably heavily damaged. Cold tyres, obviously. As a driver, you're in the car, you've got to put your hand up to the mistake. But I do think it's another proof of the point that we should rethink the rules for next year with no tyre heaters, and also with you know, the emphasis on trying to double stint your tyres and make the tyre compounds harder.
Not what Alan McNish and Audi Sport North America wanted, but they will go on and they will fight, and this is one of the guys that Alan McNish will fight against. Chris Neville is standing by with one of the men representing the French Lion.
Well, Peugeot won 4 of 5 events this year in Europe. However, it was Audi that took Le Mans and also the championship over there. Nick, all the championships are decided in Europe. Is the victory here just all about bragging rights?
Victory is about victory. Everything you do, you want to win. I mean, otherwise, it's just go do something else, you know. I just want to win every race I do, especially with the car we've got. We've got, like, in my eyes, we've got the fastest sports car there is in the world right now. It's just about putting everything right to get the victory at the end of it. The car has won a lot of races already. I mean, we're here to learn even more because, obviously, the team is still young. We need, you know, we missed a few things to get it all perfect, but I think we're here to see how much progress we've made over the months, and I think we made a lot of progress, and we're gonna go for it. You know, it's a hell of a championship here, so it's much stronger than there is in Europe at the moment. So obviously it's a bit harder. It's good, huh? Hard competition always good.
It most certainly will be good. Calvin Fish joins me here at Road Atlanta. Cal, we mentioned the Green Challenge earlier. This is an award that acknowledges and rewards both manufacturers and teams alike in prototype and GT competition for having the most fuel-efficient, environmentally and competitive package all at the one time.
It really does, Lee. There's a real buzz about this Green Challenge here this weekend. Now, the results will be based on a number of factors. One is that we've got 3 different fuels being raced here this weekend: the clean diesel, the E85 and the E10. Now, all 3 fuels titles produce a different carbon footprint. That's the first factor. Then fuel efficiency. How much fuel is going in those race cars during the course of the event? That is carefully monitored up and down pit lane. Sophisticated equipment installed in the fuel rigs will be giving you those results real time here today. Very exciting news. And of course, you can't cruise to collect here today, the Green Challenge. You have to be running very competitive lap times.
Racing series all over the world are keeping an eye on this event here today. Time now for the national anthem with 11-year-old Kelly O'Connell.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Isn't she a brave little girl and a very talented little girl? And that is, again, the 11-year-old daughter of Corvette racing hero Johnny O'Connell. We say well done, Kelly O'Connell. You are with us live here on Speed. This is Petit LeMans, Road Atlanta. Speed's coverage of the American Le Mans Series is brought to you by Acura, Advance, and by Mobil 1, the world's leading synthetic motor oil. Couldn't ask for a more beautiful fall morning for the 2008 running of Petit Le Mans, part of the American Le Mans Series 10th anniversary, and this is actually the 11th running of this marvelous event. The pressure is on. There is so much to play for. Calvin Fish and Dorsey Schrader will talk through that in just a moment. Well, with today being the debut of the Green Challenge, it's very appropriate that we have the Director of the Office of Transportation and Air Quality from the Environmental Protection Agency, Margot Oge, here to give our drivers those most important words and the most exciting words in the world of motor racing. I'll leave it to Margot.
John, I was actually round
Drivers,
back there.
start your engines.
We're racing to tomorrow faster with the inaugural Green Challenge.
That's what we have been waiting for. Those words for the boys to fire it up, to clear the grid, and let's get going. Calvin, this race is not just a marquee event by itself. It's part of the bigger American Le Mans Series. What is at stake today?
Well, there's a lot of pressure on these teams and drivers here this weekend. Now, certain titles have already been decided, the P1 titles, for example, but many others up for grabs. And in P2, the battle rages on between Acura and Porsche. Timo Bernard and Romain Dumas currently have a 4-point lead in the driver's chase, but with their win at Detroit, Acura now have a 4-point lead over Porsche in the manufacturer's stakes. How have Porsche responded? Well, they've entered a 5th car here this weekend, a 3rd yellow Penske Porsche for Ryan Briscoe and Elio Castroneves. But Dorsey, this is a 10-hour event. It's like 4 sprint races in one. Execution is the key. What do you expect here today?
Well, this should be the best Petit Le Mans ever. Certainly it has the potential of being the fastest. Every track record's been obliterated, smashed, the cars are flying. That being said, the prediction is if the drivers don't use their heads today, the potential for a big accident is there, very much so. There's more prototype cars here than there are GT cars. The closing rate is huge between the two, and all during the week, we've had skirmishes and a lot of accidents. They have to keep it clean today.
Well, guys, with 4 victories and only 4 points back in this championship. Things couldn't look better for Scott Sharp and David Brabham, but a massive accident on Thursday destroyed the Patron Acura. The team had to build an entirely new car. David, how does a situation like that impact a team on such an important weekend?
Well, it's going to have a negative effect and a positive effect, really. Obviously, we lost a lot of track time. The guys had to completely build a new car. The positives are, I think, this race is going to need a lot of character. And I think when you go through hardship like that, it really bonds the team. And, you know, we're on good momentum still from the last few races. We feel very much up for it, definitely.
Well, for more on this P2 championship, Brian Till.
Romain Dumas, Timo Bernhard going after not only the Drivers' Championship, but the Manufacturers' Championship as well. So double the pressure on you guys this weekend and in the final round at Laguna. Do you think about that pressure, Romain, or you just put your head down and focus on the win?
Well, for sure, we have the two championships, the driver and the manufacturer. We have to take care, but, you know, we are here also to racing. So we have 3 cars now on the team, 3 strong cars. So he gives us a good chance for the result for the race. So let's go and see. It's 9 hours. We just have to have a clean race, and we'll see at the end.
You win the race, it helps you in the championship either way, guys. It's about winning.
And that's exactly what they are thinking about in GT2 as well. This will be a thrilling battle between the Flying Lizards and Tafel Racing. It's 4 wins to 3, respectively, for Tafel. For Lizards against Tafel, and this will be one of our focal points today. Let's get it to Jamie with more on GT2.
That's right, Lee. The Porsche-Ferrari battle will continue. Wolf Hensler, Jörg Bergmeister starting a little further back on the grid in 4th, but still leading the GT2 championship. Wolf, today is the championship. Is it going to be about staying consistent or getting those points?
Maybe a little bit more of both, but we have a good lead, and today we have the chance to close the championship, but you never know what happened in a race like this, 9-hour race or even longer. For sure we will stay out of trouble and try to keep the car in one piece, and then we see at the end where we are and at what position, and how many points we get and how many points the 71 get, and if we are champion or not. But for sure we want to, I mean, the goal is to close it today, and we need some luck, and I hope we have it today.
You can see the pressure starting to creep in on Wolf Hensler's face. A very accomplished driver, but he knows the business today. American Le Mans Series racing is all about 4 classes on the track at the same time. So it is time to meet our 4 respective pole sitters with the Mazda starting grid.
Hi, I'm Stéphane Sarrazin from France.
Hi, I'm Nick Minassian from France.
Hi, I'm Ryan Briscoe from Sydney, Australia.
I'm Andrew Castroneves, São Paulo, Brazil.
Hi, I'm Johnny O'Connell from Flowery Branch, Georgia.
Hi, my name is Jan Magnussen. I'm from Roskilde, Denmark.
I'm Ron Fellows from Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
I'm Jaime Merlo from Cascavel, Brazil.
Hi, I'm Mika Salo from Helsinki, Finland.
Now, as you heard Dorsey Schrader mention earlier, there has been numerous accidents this week. The cars are circulating Road Atlanta faster than ever before, and it is a very busy racetrack. Boys, take a look at this graphic to see just how many teams, cars, drivers have been affected.
And these are not small crashes. These crashes are involving GT cars usually going off the road to turn 1 in the S's and down here in turn 12. All flat out corners in top gear. Take a look at the damage of what happens. This is turn 1.
Scott Sharp here earlier in the week. This, hold the tub. They had to replace the tub in the Patron Highcroft Acura, and this is what has forced the car to go to the back.
This is Gerardo Bonilla. Big shame here. The BP-sponsored car. They're debuting that Lola Coupe. Beautiful car, but you can see the resulting damage. They are not going to see the green this morning.
And then finally, as we've already shown you at the top of the show, Alan McNish. It's almost hard to believe that this is Alan McNish in the car. But everybody, champions even make mistakes on race morning.
And that car has not been repaired to make the start yet. They're working on it still. There's the empty pit where it will come to when they get it back to going.
So, down the hill on the back straight, heading towards turns 10A and 10B for the final time. We will begin the 11th annual Petit LeMans right here, right now this morning. But defending race winner and series winner Alan McNish will not be there to see the green flag. There is the Scotsman waiting, and Audi has been practicing this. Brad Kettler, the technical director, said we worked all Monday on emergency tactics. Well, they are being employed right now as we get ready to go racing live here on Speed, the American Le Mans Series, Petit Le Mans, and it's the Peugeot starting from Poland, sees the green first, and you see those three bright yellow Penske Porsches fending off the Acuras.
You have to wonder whether they're going to try and support the number 7 car in the mix there, but it looked like Briscoe may have got the jump.
Marco Werner tucking into second spot, where he was elevated on the starting grid from third, courtesy of the absent number 1 Audi of Alan McNish. Then it's the 3 Penske Porsches, 1, 2, 3, just like that, top 3 in class.
Look at Werner, Dorsey. He's really close to Manassian there as you come off turn 5. And there you see him looking for a move. He's trying to catch the draft down into turn 6.
One of the problems Marco Werner reported in qualifying was that it took several laps for the tires on his number 2 Audi to come up to temperature. So keep a close eye on that on these opening lap, guys. Can he get the tires up to temperature and to pressure? Will he have a car to do battle with?
The whole complexity of Road Atlanta has changed with these cars because they have so much ground force. Most of these corners are flat-out corners. There's no brake zones any longer. Drafting is an issue, but think about the dirty air, Calvin, at 200 miles an hour just about at the bottom of this hill.
Well, I think that Peugeot's hitting 200, but the Audi is not. You can see the gap that the Peugeot created down the straightaway. Then you see the 3 Penske Porsches in line astern. Carefully watching over these guys is Tony Kanaan, the IndyCar star, driving that car, the number 26 AGR entry.
This is what's amazing. Flat out through turn 12. We've been on that for years, but these cars can do turn 1 flat as well.
In high downforce configuration in testing, yes, they were absolutely wide open through turn 1. That is remarkable stuff with the aero efficiency of these cars.
On board with Scott Sharp. This is right where he ran off track earlier in the week and suffered that heavy collision and crash and damage to the Patron Highcroft Acura, now working his way through the field.
Now, David Bradman did qualify this car yesterday, but there's a requirement that all of the drivers have to get a minimum amount of laps at night practice. That was not achieved, and hence they had to start at the back of the grid today.
This is Alan McNish out of the tent. They've got the Audi repaired. He will make his way out now to get into resume this race. He'll be 1 lap down at least.
And I wonder if the pit lane speed limit is in effect in the paddock as well. They want to get this thing out there.
Well, that was a special escort. Meanwhile, up front, this is Nicholas Manassian leading the way. And by the time Manassian comes around, McNish will be at least 2 laps down. He is already as of now.
And looking at the hairline on that driver, it may have been Emanuele Pirro, McNish's teammate, leading the charge there.
Well, I tell you, 2 laps down is not that bad here. If everything were to go right for McNish from now on, and we have a full course yellow out already. The other 30 car off the road.
It's Ryan Lewis behind the wheel of the Intersport machine. 2 prototypes here for the Intersport organization.
This is a new car. They had a massive crash with John Faulkner at Mosport a couple of months ago, and here you see just losing power here and pulls it off to the side of the road safely. Now he's got a bit more fire.
He'll be on the radio talking to the pits, trying to tell them what's happened. They'll be trying to tell him what he can try to do to get this thing back running.
Alan McNish brings it to his pit box. He has to shut the car off, has to fire up under its own energy, and away he goes.
Just listening to the crew, they were talking to McNish down pit road and said, look, under this full course caution, it'll be perfect. You'll be able to shake the car down behind the pace car here and make sure everything is tight the way it needs to be. So this full course caution couldn't have come at a better time for the Audi boys.
And right here is exactly where Alan McNish lost the car, accelerating through that left-hander.
We're up and running here at Road Atlanta, Petit Le Mans, but it's time for a quick break while we're under caution. Stick around. Glad to have you with us live here on Speed, part of the American Le Mans Series. This is Petit Le Mans, the 1,000-mile classic. Special event for all of these fans. It's a massive crowd here in northern Georgia, but it's also a very significant event if you're the boss of the American Le Mans Series and the CEO of the Paynos Motorsports Group. I had a chance to sit down with Scott Atherton earlier this week. Well, Scott, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the American Le Mans Series. You really came on board when this thing was getting traction, but you've brought a lot more traction to the series. Is there one thing that you can highlight about your tenure at the top of the American Le Mans Series?
The phone call from Germany that the Porsche board of directors had approved the new prototype program that was soon to be announced to be aligned with Penske Racing and all that begat. You know, I credit that as being the catalyst at the moment that triggered many, many other things that came after that. In the same category, I would have to say the call from Robert Clark from Honda, HPD, Acura, thankfully with similar news. That was a 3-year process for us to bring Acura into the American Le Mans Series. I was on the freeway at the time, the interstate. I looked down with my phone ringing and saw the name on the screen. I literally pulled over and stopped the car because I knew this call is going to make us or break us. And that call triggered Andretti Green and XM and Lowe's and Fernandez and Patron and Highcroft and on and on. And those together have to be collectively the high points of our decade.
You know, you talk about the manufacturers, you talk about the crowds, fantastic crowds, and big name drivers. If you were to blanket it with those three, crowds, drivers, manufacturers, why do they come? What attracts them here?
I think this is becoming more and more important, certainly for the manufacturers. You know, at a time in an era where automobile manufacturers are under quite possibly the most challenging times ever, the justification for everything they do from a marketing perspective and certainly from an R&D perspective has to be justified. So if your racing investment is solely for the purpose of entertainment, I think it's going to become more and more difficult to justify that. On the other hand, if your racing investments are truly connected to the opportunity to grow, develop, innovate technology that has a practical application directly from that race car back to the production line, if you can tap into the R&D budget and do it respectfully and justifiably, that's where I think auto racing has to go if it's to succeed as we go forward into the future.
And Scott Atherton addressed the media and VIPs yesterday here at Road Atlanta with his annual State of the Series, a very rock-solid plan moving forward, and the theme of getting to tomorrow faster was the overall theme, and a lot of positives to come out of that. We'll hear from Scott later in the show, later this afternoon. But first up, let's hear from Marco Andretti.
Well, so many IRL competitors here with you this weekend, Marco. How much rivalry is there between all you guys to be the one that comes away the victor?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're trying to beat each other. I think we all have our goals set at the top, and so, you know, I think with that, I think, you know, we're trying to race everybody, you know, not just each other. You know, I'm sure I'm speaking for all of them when we're having fun with this stuff. I mean, you know, loads of grip, which is everything a driver wants, is to be able to carry the speed through the corner. So just having fun right now. I'm waiting to drive.
Good luck today, man.
It's great to have Marco here. We saw him earlier this year at Sebring and also at Lime Rock. Take a look at this. Petit LeMans by the numbers, and some pretty impressive ones there, Dorse.
Yeah, I'd say so. And the diversity of these guys, it's the best drivers from all breeds of racing that there are to come here. These cars are incredibly fast. They corner along with a Formula One car. I mean, in G-forces pulled. That means through turn 12 down here through turn 1, over 4 Gs. These will be some tired boys. They've got to be fit.
And this is a tough race to win. No one has won the big three in the same year. Even Tom Christensen, he's the last person to win Sebring and, Le Mans in this race at the same year, but not all three. So a lot on the line here today.
So that means if McNish and Capello do it,
yeah,
they're going to do it the hard way.
Yeah, they do.
Because they're starting at the back of this pack, and they're starting 2 laps down on Nicholas Manassian, the leader, in that beautiful Peugeot 908 HDI FAP. We're getting ready to go racing down off the hill. The green flag flies. We're back to it after a short caution for the halted Ryan Lewis in the Intersport prototype. It's 2 P1 cars up front, and then we've got P2 the next 5 in a row. Gilles de Ferran in his first Petit Le Mans. nicely tucked in there in 7th place, 5th in class.
Perfect start by Manassi, and one of the things the drivers have to be careful of during these caution periods is rubber pickup, tyre build-up on the tyres. But since this track was resurfaced a couple of years ago, it's not so much of a problem. Remember in the days when those louvers on the Audis were just blown out after about an hour or two of running? Not such an issue these days with the resurfaced racetrack.
And you know, with the grip they make, Calvin, the two corners are really harder. The corner we're just seeing right here, turn 7, it's the slowest corner on the racetrack. It's 60 miles per hour. They don't have any downforce, so that's the corner that gives them the most trouble. That one, of course, in turn 3 at the top of the hill, where you're back once again under 80, 90 miles per hour.
Now you're watching Marco Werner chase down Nicholas Manassi, and Audi were very firm in saying, hey, everyone's whipping up all this hype. We're not going to get sucked into this vortex. We are going to run our own race. We'll let them do whatever they want, but we're going to stick to our strategy.
But I think that strategy changed when McNish crashed on the warm-up lap, too, because now they've got a pawn that they can use that they didn't have before.
Absolutely. I thought coming into this event that we knew the Peugeot would be quicker. Actually, qualifying was very tight. Everyone thought Peugeot would just blow Audi away. It was about a 1/10 of a second, but I thought the advantage would go to Audi because they have 2 cars in this event. But right now, Alan McNish and that squad are 2 laps down. A lot to catch up.
Well, Calvin, you know, just 8/100ths of a second between the Audi and the Peugeot in qualifying, and that is as close as the Audi has ever been in qualifying up against the Peugeot. And Alan McNish said, but I think the thing that's important is we can run that pace over a longer period of time and we can get there quicker. In fact, in qualifying, McNish did his lap on only his 4th flying lap. It took the Peugeot 16 to get to the pole. So right now, the Audi's very strong. Obviously, the 1 car is going to be starting further back, and the 2 car is the best shot right now.
I agree with you, Brian, but looking at that Peugeot, which was qualified by Stefan Sarazan, he set that lap time very late in the session, which really shows they do have a consistent race car. I spoke to him this week. He said, I did 160 laps myself here last weekend, so they have a lot of laps under their belt, even though it's their first visit here at Road Atlanta.
They were meant to bring 2 of these 908s, Doss, to Road Atlanta, but one was heavily damaged in the final round of the Le Mans Series in Europe at Silverstone in the UK. So they came to Road Atlanta with just 1. As we update you on our GT classes, Johnny O'Connell is leading GT1, and in GT2, it is the 24 Hours of Le Mans winner, Jamie Mello. Mika Salo, last year's GT2 class champions. That will not happen in 2008. They are simply too far back, and they've had just a very frustrating year, but this one would cap it off nicely.
This was a good scrap in qualifying yesterday, too. They really put it on the line. The Porsche guys doing it all, trying to take that pole position away from Ferrari. Wasn't to be. It was sure fun to watch, though.
And you have to wonder whether these other Porsche and Ferrari camps will try and assist the Flying Lizard boys, who are the lead Porsche camp, and then Tafel Racing, who are the lead Ferrari camp, in trying to get those championships. And right now, the championship contenders are not out front. Reese up front there, you see Jamie Mello now going through turn 5. And we're on board here with Dirk Werner. I believe Dorsey is establishing himself as one of the premier GT drivers in the world right now.
I totally agree with you. We watched Dirk Werner yesterday in qualifying, and he put out an effort. Boy, I mean, he really tried to get that pole position. But he can drive a race car, make no doubt about it.
Dirk Muller in the 71 Ferrari, a former Petit LeMans winner and series champion. This guy knows how to get it done in GT2 racing and is right in the center of that championship scrap for GT2. The new Autocon, Lola whipping up the inside. That's the yellow machine. It started at the back of the pack. It too was on that long list of cars that sustained heavy damage earlier in the weekend and was repaired just down the road here in Georgia. I want to remind you that when we leave you at 1 p.m. Eastern this afternoon, while we're away in Talladega, you can stay up to date with everything live on AmericanLeMans.com with commentary from the Radio Le Mans team, bringing you up-to-date and live information all the way through until we rejoin you later in the evening. With only 3 Formula One Grand Prix remaining in the 2008 World Championship, the pressure really is on. You can see the Japanese Grand Prix next Saturday here on Speed from 12 a.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. Remember those times, it's a little different because the gang are in Fuji, where Calvin's boy Lewis Hamilton boasts a 7-point advantage. Can he do it in his 2nd year in Formula One? That has been just as exciting as the American Le Mans Series this year. As we say, welcome back live, folks. to Road Atlanta here in Georgia for Petit LeMans for the 11th time. What great diversity we have with tyre suppliers, tyre manufacturers, as we take a look at the overview of the Michelin tyre summary in this field that continues to grow.
It really does, but Michelin have certainly had a stranglehold on this event. They're going for their 10th consecutive victory. They didn't win the first one, but ever since, Dorsey, it's Michelin's territory. They've got their home base just down the road. They've got about 400 guests here this weekend, so a big weekend here for Michelin.
Fascinating to watch these cars as they work through traffic. Now, we talked about the closing rate between GT cars. With these prototypes being able to run 2 or 3 corners completely flat out, the GT cars, on the other hand, have got to brake for those corners. That increases the closing rate substantially from what it would be at some other tracks. But Road Atlanta, because of the configuration of it, is so darn fast, the corners, that these prototypes making the downforce they do, you know, they just fly by. You'll see the closing rate here in a moment.
Well, I was talking to Tony Dow, who's technical director for Taffel Racing here this weekend. He had a radar gun out here last weekend looking at the guys testing. He said there was about a 30-mile-an-hour difference as they come down the S's here and approach turn 5, and that was between a fast car versus a fast car. Imagine when you've got a slower driver in the car or a car in the GT2 field that is not up to speed. That speed differential is suddenly 50 miles an hour.
One driver used to speed at a high number is not only Gilles de Ferran, but his new teammate, his new driver this weekend, Scott Dixon. Let's hear from him.
Scott Dixon, you're the reigning IRL champion. You've shown your speed and your skill in the open wheel ranks, but the American Le Mans Series has 4 different classes. How does that change things for you?
Well, I think first of all, it's a lot of fun. You know, it's been a pleasure to work with, Gilles de Ferran and Pagenaud with the Acura car. It's been tons of fun. It's hard, I think, in the fact that you got to share the car with so many people and try and compromise a lot. But as far as racing on track, the Acura is unbelievable. The cornering speeds are so high, and when you're racing around with GTs, there's a lot of stuff going on. So for me, man, it's a ton of fun.
A lot of fun, a lot of stuff going on, and guys, a lot of that is the traffic.
Do you remember several years ago when Scott Dixon went over to the UK and tested for Frank Williams for Formula One? He said, getting in this Acura prototype reminded me of when I had my test for Williams.
Right, the amount of downforce that these cars create. They don't have the horsepower, of course, but through the corners, you're going to see Gilles de Ferran here attack turn 1.
Bit faster than the Trans Am days, Dawes.
Yeah, with 144-mile-per-hour apex speed there.
And they're spiking 4.5 Gs in the middle of that corner in qualifying trim. Unbelievable stuff.
Again, the S's now in these cars easily done flat. You just whip on through there. It's not so for the GT boys. They're holding on for dear life going down there.
You need to be a fit driver these days. The neck muscles are really pulverized around this racetrack.
You guys are talking about G's. I talked to some of the prototype teams and some of the guys down on pit lane. Obviously, all of these drivers have trainers. They work out religiously. They are in great shape. Some of these teams, though, are about to be involved in some training for fighter pilots so that they can get used to trying to make sure that they can withstand the G's, how to train your body and how to strain to keep the blood in your head, because the G-forces, like you guys were talking about, well over 4 G's through these high corners, it really takes a toll on your body. It starts to drain the blood from your head. And these guys, we always talk about them pilots. Well, now they're going to be getting the training of fighter pilots, guys.
How is fellow Acura car doing? The Patron Highcroft machine with Scott Sharp at the wheel. 10 P1 prototypes, 10 P2 prototypes. More prototypes here at Petit LeMans than GT cars, and that is a first in the 11-year history of this event. And Scott Sharp has worked his way up to 8th in class.
Well, Lee, as we reported earlier, that Patron car is a brand new tub, and that tub is the only spare that Acura had, and they just brought it over to the States 5 days before this week got started. Now, since that car had never been up to speed before qualifying, they really didn't hit the setup just right for David Brabham. The car was very loose. He came in during qualifying, made some changes, and they tightened it up way too much. Talking to him this morning, they said, you know, we kind of split the difference, but we really haven't figured out the setup. But in the morning warm-up, he said it felt pretty good. But the thing we have to remember, morning warm-up ambient temperature was 56 degrees. It's 76 now, and it's only going to get hotter from here.
Yeah, talking to the Michelin guys this morning, they believe that the track temp would peak at about 110 degrees about 3 p.m. this afternoon. Relatively cool conditions, though, this year, Dorsey, compared with previous years.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. And yesterday's qualifying was in the heat of the day as well.
Whoa, he's lost it! Scott Sharp loses it and hits the wall! This is a championship contender. Drama here for Scott Sharp under the bridge.
He crashed earlier in the week and destroyed the car, and Sharp has lost it again, heading up the hill to the bridge. How badly did it contact the bridge?
I heard a thump there. Right now, it doesn't look too bad, but I think it's probably the other side. You can see the wing end plate tweaked there a little bit.
It is definitely the other side that hit, no doubt about that, Calvin. That was a strange spin to have. It looked like maybe it just lit up the rear wheels on acceleration.
These cars do have traction control, which they can dial in. Chris?
Well, just listening to Scott Sharp on the radio, he's just telling the team, guys, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. It just snapped on me. I think something broke. The team obviously more concerned about Scott, asking him if he's okay. He's saying he is fine, but he just has no idea what happened with the car there.
Well, I kind of agree there. I think something did break, Calvin, because it's not much of a corner. We'll take another look at this wreck. That's straight line acceleration pretty much.
He's on the gas. He loses it, though, just after apex, so he's accelerating through that corner. Clobbers the left side there.
Looks like he might have just hit left front suspension, though. I think maybe he's just broken the left front suspension. He's going to get out now.
He's hopping out, and there's rules here. If he gets too far away from this race car, that may take him out of the action. The key for these guys is how do you get it back to pit lane, get a repair affected. You got to get to 70% here today to score points. Not only your regular race points, there's 10 bonus points on hand here today.
Well, Cal, we just saw Scott Sharp get out of that car, and before he got out, the team was saying, Scott, you got to stay in, you got to stay in. We got to get it back to pit lane. But he had already unhooked his radio, so the team not having any more communication with Scott. The main thing they want to do, get that car back to pit lane, because they still have a championship to fight for.
Well, I don't know that he's going to be able to do that now, Calvin. Looks like he might get into the medical vehicle here. That's leaving the car out there stranded.
Well, we're checking the rule book. I believe there's a rule in place. If you go more than about 10 meters away from the race car, I think you're effectively DQ'd. So we're going to check that right now. I know at Le Mans we've seen that in previous years.
If he's in the medical car and that drives away, it's day done. That could be as much as championship done.
What a shocker.
Hey guys, we got to remember the bonus points here this weekend. So if these guys get the DNF, they're going to lose those 10 bonus points from just being at the long event too.
The thing is, I don't think the cars crashed that badly, Calvin. I really think that they could get that back if they had.
I don't know why he got out. Why would he get out of the car?
This is a nightmare for Duncan Dayton's Patron Highcroft Acura team. The team who worked all-nighters to get this car back on track is now scratching its head. We'll be back with more right after this. Speed's coverage of the American Le Mans Series is brought to you by True Value, with the tools, products, and advice to start your projects right. True Value. Start right. Start here. And by Audi. The truth is out. It's powerful, and it's available at your Audi dealer now. Audi. Truth in engineering. We have had two astonishing things happen today. First of all, multi-time series champion Alan McNish crash on the outlap. Now, most recently, just minutes ago, look at the frustration, the disappointment and dejection in the Patron Highcroft camp. They are being told by Dick Martin, the captain of the pit lane, that their day is over. They have breached an IMSA rule by leaving a stranded car. The driver, Scott Sharp, leaving his stranded Acura prototype. He moved more than 10 meters away from that car, and that means you are no longer eligible to compete in this race. And they are one of the championship contenders in the P2 class.
And Dorsey, this is one of the things that the drivers and teams have to be totally in line with. Scott Sharp should know once you leave that car, you're going to beat those marshals off with a stick. No, I'm staying with this thing until you absolutely drag me out of this race car. He's frustrated. He's probably not thinking clearly. You'll see him hold his head here in a moment. He is just devastated.
He's right at the top of the hill under the bridge where the pit lane entrance is. I mean, all he had to do
get it pointed down there, get it in the pit lane, then the crew could have come to his assistance.
Now, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, look how close it was from a little earlier on. Now, as they run, that would be the point scenario. So if they finish last in class, that's what the point scenario would be, heading to Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca for the final round of the American Le Mans Series.
The only argument they might possibly have is if Scott were to say that when the medical truck came up, they demanded he get in it. You know, I don't know. I don't think that happened, but that would be probably the only thing that he could argue about, because the rule is explicit. 10 meters, 30, 40 feet from the car. Once you leave that, you're done. And I don't think Scott was aware of the rule, I'll be honest with you. I think he didn't know.
Well, you get out of your game, do you know what I mean? And that's where you've got to calm down. I'm sure the crew were trying to analyze the situation, but before the team could get on the radio, as Chris mentioned, Chris Neville down in the pits, monitoring the scanners there, he said that Scott had already unbuckled.
Calvin Dorset wasn't only troubles for Patron Highcroft Racing. How about the second Audi car? Marco Werner at the wheel, coming in for stops during this caution earlier. Watch this. In the Audi camp, they've already dealt with the McNish problem. Then this occurs to Marco Werner. Watch carefully. Wheel not on right.
Right front wheel was never put on. The nut was never put on. Now they're going to have to push the car back, and the wheel's going to try to fall off.
Well, Dorsey, they went to attach that right front wheel, put it on, and what it did was it got cross-threaded and it stripped the tines on that lug nut. So as it stripped the threads on that nut and it started to pull away, they could see that it was not tight as it needed to be. So good catch by the crew member, but still a big mistake for Audi. Thank goodness it happened at the full-course caution instead of under green.
And that's what I was just about to say, too. It was under caution. There's Scott Sharp. He's back in his pit area discussing that problem they just had.
I want to say that I did a little bit of lip reading and a tiny bit of audio there, and I think I heard Scott Sharp say, "I have never heard such a rule." And you can imagine the despair down there.
That's Robin Hill to the left, leaning in with Dick Martin. Just a great team manager. He's really got great chemistry working with that group, but they have a major issue right now, a rules problem.
We will do our best in this next commercial break to try and break into that scrum there and have a word with Scott Sharp about this nightmare situation for the championship contending Patron Highcroft team. We will squeeze in a quick commercial break here, come back and go racing. We'll go to the break with a magical moment for Lucas Luhr earlier this year.
Strategy out the window. 3 minutes to go. Right now, green flag coming out. Lucas Luhr.
Watch the Audi.
Tucked in behind. There goes Dumas to defend. Luhr pops to the outside. He knows he can do it because he's done it before. He is already by and then protects beautifully to the inside. Luhr comes out. You can see how close Dumas is, but now the torque and horsepower of that Audi. Luhr drives to the wall. He has done it. Audi wins overall at St. Pete for the second straight year.
From the most exotic sports cars to one-of-a-kind prototypes and celebrity rides to timeless classics, for the very first time, it's Barrett Jackson, the famous automobile auctions in Las Vegas, October 16, and that's from 7 p.m. Eastern right here on Speed. And you know what? They're even auctioning off the Mustang Challenge car that our own Dorsey Schrader drove here at Road Atlanta and at Mid-Ohio earlier this year. Do you get a cut of the action, Dors?
Well, we'll find out about that. I'm going to be there. I'm going to try to get that thing bid up good. Nice car.
We welcome you back to Road Atlanta. Petit LeMans continues, and most dramatic scenes involving Audi and Patron Highcroft, separate incidents, but the most recent one involves the Patron Highcroft driver Scott Sharp and his team of Dario Franchitti and David Brabham. It's a championship contending car. They were plowing over the rules. They were discussing the rules. Chris Neville has the latest.
Guys, this story is still developing down here in pit lane. Duncan, you've talked to Dick Martin, the IMSA official. Where are we?
Well, Scott was ushered away from the car by safety personnel at their direction. So The rules state that he's allowed to work on the car. They've unfortunately taken it to the wrong side of the track. He got out of the car to survey the damage. Was going to get back in the car and try to limp it back into pit lane, which was right there. So we're a little bit of a disadvantage. If we'd gotten it into pit lane, we could have all worked on it. The whole team could have. The car is now on the other side of the track, so if it's not too bad, Scott can work on it. But obviously a big blow to the championship, but we'll try to get back in the race, and it's a long race, and a couple hours of work. Maybe we'll get some points at the end and take it down to Laguna.
Well, guys, obviously we can see very changing story down here. We initially thought the team was going to be out, but they've lobbied their way back in because they said Scott was taken away from that car by the IMSA medical team. But the thing is that Scott is going to be the only one allowed to work on that car outside of turn 12. Then he's got to limp it all the way around the racetrack, get it back to pit lane, and see if the team can get it fixed from there.
See, I told you that was the only point that he could have argued, is the fact that the medical guy was there and that he could say that he made me leave the car. He made me get in this car. Now, the problem is that they put it on the wrong side of the racetrack. There's 2 pit lanes here, and the pit lane that they put it on is over here. Scott will have to probably put a tie rod on or do something. It's going to be a lot of work to do for one man, and that's all that they're going to allow him to do. In the meantime, we're going to go racing.
There it is. As Duncan said, it's on the wrong side of the racetrack.
But that's heading up towards the front gate.
Yeah, it's on the way out.
It's on the way out of the track.
Allowing technology to get some carbon fiber work done over there.
So this story is not going away. We will follow it. We will keep you up to date with it as to what will evolve for Patron Highcroft and Scott Sharp. Meanwhile, there you go. The field compact. We've got a new overall race leader after those early stops. Ryan Briscoe in his Penske Porsche is leading, and Danny Watts is leading the P1 class, currently second in that Ginetta Zytek. It's been a very impressive car this week, and they begin the chase. Briscoe is on it early. Green flies, long caution over with. We go back to racing. A P2 car leads overall.
And look at Briscoe. He defends to the inside. He realized that P1 car has more horsepower. Can Danny Watts make the move up into turn 3? Very difficult here, Dorsey, to get a run on a car and make it stick.
No way Briscoe was going to let that happen. He could have made it happen. There's no doubt about that with the horsepower issue, but nope, not yet. The only real good chance is going to be up on this long straightaway.
This is the Team LNT prototype sitting second. Danny Watts was Kimi Raikkonen's teammate in British Formula Renault back in 2000. And it's been wonderful to have Danny here. This team, led by Lawrence Tomlinson, has just been going quietly about their business this week here at Road Atlanta. But, Carl, they've impressed everybody.
They really have, and he's got a very experienced teammate alongside him, Olivier Pla. Very fast, young single-seater guy, now making his mark in sports car racing.
Calvin just spoke with Tim Cindric down at Penske Racing, and he just shook his head. He said, I don't get it. I'm not really close enough to comment too much other than to say, I just don't get it. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. We've got to put our heads down. We have a job to do. We really can't be worried about them. Even if they had dropped out of this race, we still need to focus on winning, finishing as high as we can, and getting points. So let them do what they're going to do. We've got a job to do of our own.
What Cindric is talking about by not getting it, he doesn't understand how the officials are now saying they will allow the Highcroft team, particularly Scott Sharp now, is to do that work and get that car mobile again. He doesn't understand it looking at his rule book. I'm sure there'll be some protests if the 9 car sees action again here today.
Of course, the argument is if, in fact, Scott Sharp was told by an official to get into the medical vehicle, well, you got to do what you're told. That's what I'd say if I was Scott Sharp.
This is the revised order. It's Danny Watts leading in P1 and overall. Ryan Briscoe second. This is Alan McNish, several laps down, working his way back through the field. He's not currently in position. However, he is currently 8th in P1. He is 30th overall on the march forward. And he's down by 2 laps. We know that. All right, there's the flatbed. And it is dropping that number 9 Patron Highcroft car on the opposite side of the pits.
That's right by where we are. It's right outside the window here on our side of the straightaway. Now what will happen is Scott will look at the damage. The mechanics can go over there and look at it as well and tell him what to do. They just can't touch the car. So they'll probably have to put a tie rod on there. Scott is capable of doing that.
They can actually direct him, but just like the driver mustn't go 10 meters away from the car, no one other than the marshals can be within 10 meters of the car. So I don't know if they got some binoculars or get up on the paddock wall there, but they'll be trying to give Scott as much assistance as they can without touching the car.
Well, they'll probably need a tire, a wheel, and a tie rod end at a guess, or a tie rod at the minimum.
Probably the key is going to be how do you fire the thing up. A lot of these cars now is one thing when you're in your pit box, but if you stall it, they don't have self-starters that will get them fired up typically.
Working his way back through the field is Marco Werner after that wheel problem earlier that Brian Till told us about. We saw in that first round of stops, and he's out chasing hard after the Penske Porsche of Timo Bernard, the 7 car, the championship leading car in P2. But getting back to Tim Cindric's comments, they're in a strong position, and he said we've just got to worry about what we've got to do, and that is put it beyond doubt, stretch that championship lead heading to Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca.
Absolutely, because they could easily come out of this event as well. You've got to get to 70% distance here today to score points. So right now, that is their target. Get to 70%, then try and maximize your points after that. It's like a basketball game. Get through the first 3 quarters, and then try and finish it off in the final one.
Getting through the first 3 quarters might be harder than they're used to. We've had so much skirmish this week, so many wrecks, so many things that happen like what we've seen so far in this race already.
We're riding there with Luis Diaz in the Lowe's Fernandez machine. Werner gets by the Intersport car and continues his run. He's chasing out after Stefan Sarrazin, and they want the P1 and overall race leader Danny Watts in their sights. Look at this. Diaz puts the pressure on the Autocon car. That's not a move for position, but just getting by a car that is a lap down.
Look at the Acura boys, 1, 2, 3, and they are the only Acuras we have left in this field right now, unless the 9 car can get it back on track.
Tony Kanaan for the XM Satellite Andretti Green Racing Team, trying to get around fellow Acura driver Luis Diaz, and Gilles de Ferran has a perfect view of all of this going on.
Luis Diaz looked to the inside of that P1 machine there, down into turn 7. Tony should have been able to get a bit of a run, but a lot of these Acura teams are running different downforce levels, and that'll have an effect down this long back straightaway.
That's the P1 car with a little bit more horsepower advantage. You see McMurray able to open up the distance, even though he holds these cars up in the corner.
That's Johnny Molan in the 48 machine, tucking through on the inside there. Currently 4th in P1 in his Zytek for Corsa Motorsports. Massive weekend for Steve Pruitt and his organization based out of Salt Lake City. Want to remind you about fan balloting for the annual From the Fans Award, and the most popular driver awards is underway, and it ends at midnight tomorrow. You can be a part of that if you head to AmericanLeMans.com for information. And seriously, make your vote count. Get involved and tell us your opinion. It'll go somewhere. Those awards are much sought after and growing in popularity by the year. Speed's coverage of the American Le Mans Series is brought to you by Acura, Acura Advance, and by Michelin, a better way forward. Everybody's trying to find a better way forward here today as we are approaching the first hour done here in this 10-hour or 1,000 miles, whichever comes first. Petit Le Mans, you're looking at Scott Sharp and his Patron Highcroft team looking at a very wounded Acura, and nobody is in too much of a rush there. I think their day is done. They have assessed the damage, and Chris Neville has more on this situation.
Well, Lee just checked in with the team, and they said they would have to replace pretty much the entire rear end or rear corner of that car, and because you can't use any tools given to the driver over the fence or where the team is right now, it would have to be tools on board the car. They just don't have that, so there's no way that they can get the 9 car back to pit lane. But don't think that this Prototype 2 championship is over, because we've still got drama developing down here, guys. Highcroft has filed a formal protest against the Penske Porsches on the fuel that they are using this weekend. It is a new blend of fuel, and Porsche said they needed to use it because the new direct injection motor that they've been using seems to get some engine knock after going long distances. They didn't experience it in the sprint races, but they thought they were going to be experiencing it here, so they needed this new fuel that has a new detergent in it. Now, the Penske is supposedly saying that it's not a performance advantage, so therefore it shouldn't be against the rule, but Highcroft's saying it's a reliability advantage, so therefore it's a performance advantage in a long distance race.
Absolutely, Chris. I mean, that is definitely something that we'll hear more about. Remember, last year, Porsche were the last team on the grid to switch to the ethanol-based fuel. They said we haven't done enough testing with it, and they really pushed their envelope all the way to mid-season before they switched over, so they're really pushing the rule book a little bit.
Well, and down the Penske camp, Tim Cindric and the boys just shrugged their shoulders and said, sour grapes. We take our fuel out of VP 55-gallon drums just like everybody else does, and it's just one of those things that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the fuel that we have. Let them do what they want to do, but we're legal, and they just shook their head and said, we got a race to get back to, guys.
And that's a story we will continue to follow. Meanwhile, big trouble here for both prototypes in the Intersport team. John Field here. First of all, you can see the obvious damage on the right rear. But before that, Ryan Lewis, who was the car in front, he was also experiencing dramas on the track. So let's take you back and show you the replay of what happened to John Field, race winner in P1 this year in the American Le Mans Series.
Locks it up big time, Cal, down in the turn.
He's already, the suspension's broken there.
He lost
he lost the crossweight in the car. That's what locked up the left front there, and he went for a ride. Lucky boy there, he didn't hit the wall.
This is what I talked about earlier in the week with the speeds of these cars. You know, when you break a suspension at the speeds they're going around here, he was a lucky boy. You're right.
Well, they've struggled all day long with that 37 in the power plant that's in it, and they think they have some type of either an exhaust manifold problem inside the engine or a turbo problem, so they really weren't getting the speed that they needed, and now to have the suspension problem just adds a little bit of insult to injury.
One thing that all of the teams have been very concerned about is that the drivers are really riding the curbs around this racetrack to get lap time here, Dorsey, and you have to be careful with your ride out. If you run it too low to the ground, you start hitting those curbs, it will break suspension.
From prototypes to GT2, Jamie Mello for Risi Competizione is still leading that class and leading it very nicely by some 4.7 seconds over Pierre Caffa in the JMB Ferrari. Here is that class leading car. Just the two drivers in it this year, Jamie and Mika Salo. They did originally have three last year with Johnny Molan, who experienced a crash on warm-up on the morning and had a very injured wrist. So basically they did the entire Petit Le Mans by themselves last year. Anyway, they said it seems to work. It keeps things clean and simple. Let's do it again and see if that is the secret to our success in 2008.
Big news this weekend, speaking to Mika Salo, he may not be back behind the wheel of this Ferrari for next year. He's got aspirations to go NASCAR. He's got his buddy JV, Jacques Villeneuve, been attempting to get a full-time ride down there. Mika told me he's got meetings over the course of the next few weeks, and he said they're pretty promising, and he said, I'd love to try it.
This is Pierre Caffa, former prototype driver, now proving to be somewhat of a GT specialist. Incredibly fast driver. And this is a very good outfit. Ben Orcott and Stefan Daoudi. And they've got ahead of the Farnbacher Lowe's Porsche of Dirk Werner. Just a second separating those guys in the top three. Johannes van Overbeek has done a very good job. And a little bit of strategy coming into play there as well from Flying Lizard to get the American up into fourth in class. And he is ahead of the championship contending 45 Flying Lizard car of Jörg Bergmeister.
Hasn't been an easy weekend for the Flying Lizard boys. Seth Nyman had a couple of incidents, and so did the 46. Johannes van Overbeek had the throttle stick coming through turns 10A and B, and a major off with severe damage to that race car. So they've been on the toes. All of the paddock has been a buzz this weekend. A lot of repairs going on.
Yes, Seth's crash was right there in the S's. That's another real high-speed area of the racetrack. Unforgiving if you get off of it.
That's the battle for third, and they are chasing this guy here. 24 Hours of Le Mans GT2 class winner, Jamie Mello. Chris?
Well, guys, something we're going to have to watch with both Ferrari camps this weekend is the rear wing. Thing Risi saw this morning is these mounting tabs underneath the rear wing had cracks in them. This isn't the first time the team has seen it this year. This is actually the 5th time they see it. They've not seen it during a race, but the fact of the matter is they found it. This is a long race. We might see it later on. Now, one of the problems they had is the next wing that they put on didn't have a gurney. They found the balance this weekend with the gurney on the back end of the wing. They couldn't slide one into this wing because it didn't have the slide system. So they had to actually rivet it to the wing. By riveting it, they can't change it, so they are stuck with that gurney throughout the rest of the race.
Of course, the gurney is the 90-degree flap that they put on the very lead edge, or the edge of the back of the wing, adds downforce, not a significant amount of drag, but significant downforce. And that slot that Chris is talking about, they just literally pull up a tab and they slide the new one in, and you adjust your rear downforce that way.
This is the class points leading car of Jörg Bergmeister, multi-time series champion, multi-time Petit Le Mans winner. This man has a remarkable performance record here at Road Atlanta. Can they hang on and extend their points lead here, Brian? It's a very important day for Bergmeister and Wolf Hensler.
Well, they've got 28 points in hand coming into this event, but right now that 45 car really not handling the way they wanted to. It was interesting to listen to the team in qualifying. The car started out loose. They came in, made a rake change on that car, and it went to understeer, and it has stayed that way. So right now they've got a car that has a bit too much understeer, but talking to the crew, they said, you've got to start that way, because if you don't, as the tires wear down, the car will just get way too loose. Jörg's going to have to deal with it right now, and we have a long way to go in this race.
Bergmeister not driving easily early in this race either. So he's working his way up as hard as he possibly can. So much racing going on this weekend at Road Atlanta. Not all about the American Le Mans Series. Round 11 of the 12-round, highly competitive Star Mazda Series, and pole man Peter Dempsey did not get away to the most productive start. Check this out. It was a great race. Top three in the championship chase all together. Dempsey, Miller, and John Edwards gets into the mix, but check this out. Top of the hill, through turns 2 and 3, at the top of the S's, Dempsey and Miller get together, but they do escape. It is not all over, the action that is, for Peter Dempsey. Look what happens here with Alex Ardwan. Scary moment coming to the white, down into turn 12. Great win to John Edwards to the tune of 5.5 seconds over Joel Miller. Edwards is pumped because he's the new points leader. Quick reminder that 4-time Sprint Cup champion Jeff Gordon is Dave Despain's special guest tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Eastern. Wind Tunnel, as always, on Sunday nights here on Speed. He is still winless in 2008, but things are getting better now that we are in the chase. Jeff Gordon with Dave Despain tomorrow night on Wind Tunnel. We welcome you back to Road Atlanta. Ryan Briscoe is the race leader and the P2 class leader. Things going very, very well. He stole the pole in P2 away from Romain Dumas. Fierce battle within the Penske camp. Remember, an extra car for the DHL Penske Porsche team, and it's this very car here with the two IndyCar stars, Ryan Briscoe and Helio Castroneves. The white mirrors and the white roll hoops identify that car from the others, which have red and yellow roll hoops respectively, and mirrors, just to help with a little bit of identification. And this is Marco Werner, the P1 class leading car for Audi Sport North America.
He, of course, wants the overall lead. He doesn't like the fact that he's leading P1. He's been chasing down Ryan, actually doing better lap times. I don't think it'll be long before he takes the lead.
And we saw the problem for the 2 car during that pit stop with the wheel. And you have to wonder what happened during the Peugeot stop, because right now, Stefan Sarazan is sitting behind Marco Werner on the racetrack, so they must have had an even slower stop than the Audi boys.
He's a long way back, Calvin, some 10 seconds behind right now.
One thing is they did do a driver change. Now Audi would have not been filling up, or wouldn't have been out of fuel, so it would have been a short fuel fill, thin tires, and of course with that coupe, here he comes, Werner. Flashes around Briscoe. That is the power difference in class. P1 versus P2 there. No contest down the straightaway.
With this 2.6 mile circuit with the longest straights, Dorse, we naturally think that this is a track where a P car 1 will win because it gets a chance to stretch its legs. But talking with Brad Kettler, the technical director of Audi Sport North America yesterday, he said it's not inconceivable for a P2 car to win here when they have their act together.
Absolutely not, because there's so many high-speed corners, and you go to places like Mosport and such, and you think, oh, wow, it's all about high speed, high horsepower. But Dorsey, the cornering speeds are the key. It's not just the straightaway, it's how they're able to flash through these S's, through this turn, turn 5, through turn 1, turn 12 in particular.
And P2 car being a lighter car, it probably has the ability to corner at a higher speed than does a P1.
Corvette's in, Brian, take it away.
Olivier Beretta getting out, Ollie Gavin getting behind the wheel of the 4, and this is the bad luck team so far this year for the Corvette boys. It just seems like Gavin and Beretta cannot find the luck that has taken them to the championship in years past. If it could go wrong, it has for these guys. So far this weekend, they've been good, but they did miss the pole. Johnny O'Connell taking it, and as the 4 car finishes up on the stop, we expect to see the 3 car here on pit road momentarily.
Well, I tell you, one of those Corvette drivers was a lucky boy this weekend. Max Pappas, who's the 3rd driver in the 4 car this week, got run over on his bicycle on the way to the racetrack by a truck on the street. Very scary. He's very grazed up on his head, so thank goodness that Max is okay and he's seeing some action here today. Very scary moment indeed.
This riding bicycles on the street stuff is really not the thing to do. Had too many people get hit.
Well, remember, we think back to Bob Wallach, the legendary Porsche driver who tragically got killed on his bicycle when he was off doing some training on an event at Sebring a few years ago, so you have to be careful.
Corvette has an extraordinary record here at Petit LeMans. Remember, just a couple of years ago, they were defeated at the hands of the Aston Martin, but this has been the strength in GT1 and previous to that, GTS. Brian?
The strong man around Road Atlanta for this Corvette team is Johnny O'Connell. He is spectacular. 2 poles in the last 3 years here at Road Atlanta, and he loves this racetrack. He said, hey, if we could have a 10 or 11 race season and do them all here at Road Atlanta, I'd be all for that. He was spectacular in qualifying, and it's something that he says he's really worked on this year. Up until 2008, he only had 2 poles in his 8 years in the American Le Mans Series. In his 9th season, he's collected 3 already, so he's already doubled what he had in total, and he said, I really learned to concentrate and make sure I can get that one magic lap in, and he's doing a great job, guys.
Well, the Corvette have had so much success here at Petit Le Mans, but Danny Binks, who's the crew chief on this 3 car, has, believe it or not, Lee, never won this one, and he'd dearly like to get that under his belt here today. 4 cars coming by us now.
You're good, nice and smooth. Take the tires up. Great job.
Out.
Get in there, get in there.
Out goes Johnny, and that was Danny Binks communicating to him. The most experienced driver in the history of the American Le Mans Series. More starts than anybody else in the ALMS. Let's hear
Johnny O'Connell turning around, grabbing a hat, putting it on. It's a Corvette Bad Boys hat. And speaking of bad boy, you've been a bad boy this weekend, bad boy fast. This Corvette really flying around here.
Well, you know what? Everybody at Corvette Racing does an amazing job, and when you can, you know, compete here in your backyard, have your daughter sing the national anthem, how cool is that? You know, you want to do a good job, and you know, Dan Binks and all the guys on the 3 car are doing that. But I think right now both Corvettes are so even, it works out on traffic. You get a good lap, you might be able to brake a little bit, but it's difficult right now. But everyone seems to be working pretty well together.
Is the victory going to come here in the pit lane?
A lot of them happen that way, you know, these long races, if you do everything right, they usually go your way. And so, you know, there's a long way to go. Somebody could get a puncture, you get a pace car in between the 2 cars, you never know what can happen. But I'd prefer it gets sorted out on the racetrack than in pit lane myself.
Yeah, we've seen them fight in pit lane before, Lee.
We'll watch this one go all the way to the end, but it has definitely been the 3 cars year. Will it happen that way here at Petit Le Mans later on tonight in darkness here in northern Georgia? We will find out. It's Marco Werner back on top in P1 and overall with the Peugeot of Stefan Sarrazin chasing him down. We'll be back. Speed's coverage of the American Le Mans Series is brought to you by Mazda. On any given weekend, there are more Mazdas road raced than any other brand. Whether it be in his British Formula 3 days, his sports car days, or his time in Toyota Formula 1, Alan McNish has gained a lot of fans around the motorsport globe. And the Scottish Terrier is biting some heels right now, because he has worked his way up from way back in the pack. Last time we updated you, Alan was in 30th position. He is now, he got as high as 14th. He has just stopped, and this is his first lap back out, but he is making up ground and has set the fastest lap of the race, Brian.
He is a man on a mission. In fact, as they were working on the car, he looked at Brad Kettler and he said, I am so sorry for what I have done. I know it's my fault. If you will put it back together, I will drive it like you've never seen before. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's already set the fastest lap of the race in this first stint.
The fact that they need tire warmers now to get these cars up to speed quickly, and you saw him down that back straightaway, absolutely weaving around there, trying to generate some tire temp, because he just made a pit stop.
Unfortunately, he's still 2 laps down to the field, so I mean, he's got to make up all this ground, and he's going to have to find a way to pass the overall leader, not once but twice.
One of my favorite memories of Alan McNish, and I was so thankful to be there, was to see him at Infineon Raceway in 2000, where he lapped the entire field. We got a drama here, we got a problem for the creation.
Not in a great place to be parked there at the end of the long straightaway, turn 10, China Beach, we call that gravel area. He's spun on the exit.
Now, is that the 88 of Steve Simpson, or is it the 888 of Liz Halliday? We'll know when it turns around.
Don't do it now.
So there we go. Dramas for Liz Halliday.
Yeah, there's a 888 right there. Liz is going to have to do a bat turn, a little spin out here. But she's got to wait for the track to be clear. That's off the end of the long straightaway, the hardest braking area.
Yeah, very precarious, awkward position there, Dorsey.
Yeah, very bad spot.
That's fine. I'm trying to get sorted into reverse.
If she's trying to select reverse, I think I'd go the other way and just try to do the bat turn. And she is going to.
Yeah, but not successfully, because now she's going to definitely need reverse with the gravel trap in front of her.
And she can't see what's coming from behind her now. Now the corner worker is going to push her back. That'll help out.
Yeah, when that happens, you've got to get the traction control off and whip that thing around. This is Liz's.
What's happening, Liz?
This is Liz's first race in a P1 machine. She won here back in 05 and recently did a race in a sports car at the Nürburgring. Had a lot of last season off. She also races horses, of course, or does equestrian events, should I say. Had a big fall last year. Broke her shoulder, so that took her out of action on both the horse and in a race car for quite some time.
You trying to be funny? Horse, of course.
Do you want me to come in?
Let's have a look at what happened to Liz Halliday. She finally gets going now. In a very awkward position down there in 10A on the inside of two GT2 Ferraris.
And gets up on the curb, Calvin, gets on the throttle, and just too much.
That was lucky for Mello.
It really was, and he's right in the action here. Currently running second in GT2.
Chris?
Our leader is in, and Jamie Mello handing over to Mika Salo. The team going to do fuel and tires. Calvin, I talked to some of the Michelin tire engineers. They're saying just about everybody is running mediums right now, and most teams will do tires on these initial pit stops, but they're anticipating, after they look at those tires, most teams being able to double stint those mediums for the rest of the day. Now, this team trying to rebound after last year's Petit LeMans, where they finished 6th, mainly because Johnny Molam had a crash in the morning warm-up. And then the team experienced some tail light issues throughout the race. Mika Salo down and away. Brian, what do you have?
Marco Werner just brought the number 2 Audi to pit road. A great run for him in this early stint. He'll hand it over to Lucas Lohr. Lucas needs to make amends for the performance that they had at Detroit. Now the championship is locked up. He and Marco Werner celebrate their Drivers' Championship. Audi has won the Manufacturers' Championship, so Lucas needs to focus on speed. They need to win this thing and try to steal it away from Peugeot.
What's surprising, Brian, is the fact that the Audi is stopping before the Peugeot, because over in Europe it seemed like Audi have had about a lap or 2 advantage over the Peugeot, and here we see now Stefan Zarzan flashing over the start-finish line, and he takes the lead there with that pit stop by the Audis.
This brings us back to the point Dorsey made earlier. Watch at how they have to pick their way through traffic. Past the GT2 Porsche and Ferrari, and then he's got Gilles de Ferran up ahead.
And it makes him make some low percentage passes when you catch a guy like through here where everybody's flat out down through these S's. Of course, the P1 car is much quicker through there, and so if you catch somebody, you either have to follow them that whole section of the racetrack or do a brave maneuver.
And the difficulty, of course, is you've got 2-3 drivers rotating through these different GT2 cars, so what you see one lap can literally change the next. One of those cars can come in, different driver, different speed, different driving habits or line, so you really have to be on your toes.
Pressure's on here in GT2. That's Jörg Bergmeister being chased hard by Dirk Muller. 2 series champions in GT racing in the American Le Mans series. 2 guys who know what it takes and what it feels like to win Petit Le Mans. And these are the 2 teams fighting for the championship in GT2. Muller on the inside of Bergmeister, and Jörg doesn't fight it.
He certainly doesn't. There's a long way to go in this event. He realizes he has a huge points lead right now. You can't afford to be trading paint at this stage of a 10-hour race.
You're right. If that had been 10 minutes to go, that wouldn't have been so easy, would it?
Let's hit the pits, Brian.
Sasha Mawson taking over from Patrick Long. Sorry to step on you there, Lee, but a routine pit stop down here. Sasha Mawson, I have never seen such a determined look on his face than this weekend. Usually a very fun-loving guy, but it has all been serious business. I think he's not only driving to try to help Porsche win this Manufacturers' Championship, he may well be driving for his job as well. We saw him out of the car at Detroit, replaced by Ryan Briscoe, and Sasha Mawson has a new fire lit underneath him. He wants to prove that he is still very quick.
He really does, because getting dropped like that was a very difficult decision for Porsche and for Penske, but they realized they only had one bullet in their gun that could win races over Acura. There you see him getting past, but he's not quite up to speed yet with those cold tires, and there is the championship leader. And how big will that championship lead be tonight if these guys can finish this race and score points with the 7 car?
Will they be able to maintain their status that they've had from the start of the race of 1, 2, 3 in class? Well, courtesy of that stop, Tony Kanaan has moved up to 3rd in P2. Another quick reminder, live streaming on the web once we go away at 1 p.m. Eastern this afternoon. We've got business to take care of in Talladega, but don't forget, AmericanLeMans.com. John Hindhoff and his team from the American Le Mans Series radio team will bring you all the live action. We've got just under 30 minutes of live coverage from Petit Le Mans here at Road Atlanta to come. And then we'll join you for the second part of today's coverage from this amazing event. And that'll be at 6:30 this evening Eastern, 3:30 Pacific, for the continuation of the American Le Mans Series Petit Le Mans. This is DeFerrin Motorsports, one of the Acura prototypes. We have already lost one.
And this should bring out a full course caution. That's the target zone down there. We call it China Beach. He's not the first to plant it there.
So Gilles is stuck. And this will be caution number 3. Here's the replay.
Wow, just gets the rear brake lock up there, Calvin.
That's weird. He sort of like pointed as if he was going to take a look down the inside of that traffic there, and then the car rotates the other way. Let's go on board and take a look here, Dorsey, as he hits the brakes.
Oh yeah, got nasty early.
Downshift was it, Dorsey, maybe? I don't know. It's weird. Definitely rear lockup, as you could sense. That little bass sound that you heard from the rear end locking up there. Seeing a little bit of damage there to the right rear corner, Dorsey. Now we'll have to wonder if that had an effect. Yeah, there's
something dragging there, isn't it?
Well, he's got the rear under tray, that little diffuser.
Yeah, let's see.
You see it flopping around over there.
Flopping around before he gets into the bumpy stuff, so maybe that had come adrift and changed the balance of the car. These cars are so aero-sensitive with all these little widgets that you see displayed to create extra downforce on the race car. If one of those breaks free, it can change the balance. That was a strange one.
This
Obviously,
is
very late on the brake, sorry Lee, and threshold braking there, and that's when it can go wrong. You just let last 5 meters or so.
It's broken that bit now. We're under full course.
Stay out, pits are closed. Try and get rid of the gravel, stay out.
Good call there by his crew guy. Keep him out on the racetrack.
This is the car that current IndyCar champion and Indy 500 winner Scott Dixon will drive today, along with Simon Pagenaud. And Gilles' been in the car for an hour and 25 minutes now, getting close to his first change. Whether it will be Pagenaud or Dixon to climb aboard. This was the car that was heavily damaged last Sunday afternoon at the conclusion of the test. Right after the very last lap, Dixon tossed it away on the outside of turn 1, which created extra work and a little bit of a headache, but the team rallied. Steve Reagan and the boys did a marvelous job to get it back together.
Well, you can see there's no suspension problem that caused that, Calvin. The car's running well. That I don't know if that little aerodynamic bit, the back, was broken before he went in the gravel, or if it happened when he was going into the gravel.
Yeah, I'm sure the boys will catch up with Gilles and see what happened there, but it hasn't been a smooth week for all of the Acura guys. 3 huge crashes. Scotty Dixon had the one last weekend. We obviously have documented Scott Sharp's incident where he went off in practice in turn 1, and also the 26. Montagny had a big problem here yesterday morning, so they got the car out for qualifying. They are really running short these Acura body parts here this weekend, and we just get radio communication that Gilles said it was his mistake there under braking, so he didn't think anything was wrong with the race car.
It just shows you how hard they're driving, what the pace that these guys, these pro-level drivers, are driving to the extent that they make these mistakes.
Just another example of the stunning field that we have here at Petit Le Mans this year. 2 Indy 500 winners in the same car, DeFerrin and Dixon sharing that number 66 Panasonic Acura with Simon Pagenaud, the former Champ Car Atlantic champion, and a young man who did his 24 hours of Le Mans this year with the Orica team. enjoyed that very much. That car ended up retiring, but Pagenaud got valuable sports car experience that helped him with his de Ferran Motorsports program. Here's the Peugeot team. They're in.
Well, Stefan Sarrazin bringing the 908 to a stop in pit lane. Going to do fuel tires. It looks like Sarrazin going to stay behind the wheel. Guys, from what I'm seeing on the timing monitors, it looks like the Peugeot is a full lap ahead of both. Got a full lap lead on both Audis right now. So as things sorts out with these pit stops, we're going to have to pay attention to that. Now, Peugeot really beat up on Audi over in Europe, winning 4 of 5 races. But the way the championship sorted out in the end, and big crashes by Peugeot at Silverstone, Audi not only got the manufacturers championship, but the drivers championship. So this team trying to come away with their first win in North America.
Pit road is busy. Check it out. McNish is back in. The Lizards are in. Penske, one of the Penske cars is in.
And look at this. Watch McNish. Now the Peugeot is down, and I think that McNish here will try and just take a splash and try and get a lap back here. Let's see if that #1 Audi can beat him out. Yes, he does. That is one of McNish's laps. He just got one back on the Peugeot that now comes down pit lane.
Good call there by Kettler and the boys. Get that car out before the Peugeot, get that lap. They got to do it one more time, then they're back in the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so much longer to go. That's what it's all about. Sports car racing is just about hanging in there. A nightmare to begin the day. Right there, down through the S's, crashing the car. McNish said, it's my fault, but I'm going to make amends like you can't believe. Brian?
Well, but it is a team sport, and that's one of the things Brad Kettler said. We believe in him, and we will work as hard as we possibly can, and he believes in us. And right now, you talked about it, Calvin. Kettler on the radio, as soon as that full course caution came out, said, we're going to dive to pit road, take a splash, we're going to get one of our laps back, and that is exactly what they did. That's why they win races and championships. Jamie?
The 48 Corsa Motorsports Zytec just came into pit lane. Stefan Johansson behind the wheel. There's a little bit of pause for Stefan getting the car to go back out. Looked like he could not get it to go underneath power, but driver changed fuel and tires for that team.
Stefan Johansson, one of the regular team members last year with the Patron Highcroft team, and Scotty Sharp came on board full-time. Stefan did drive the 9 car at Sebring and had great success here a couple of years ago with a podium finish.
Saw Johnny Mollum start that car. Johansson behind the wheel now, and Gunnar Jeanette is a third driver in that car as well. Let's leave you with a magical moment from Mosport.
Oh, and look at this. Huge implications in the GT2 Points Championship. That is the 45 of Bergmeister and 71 Dirk Mueller. Took a run at him and got the door slammed and wasn't able to get through. And
this is good stuff. They're doing it again. They're trading paint there down the straightaway. This is high-speed stakes here at Mosport. Oh, Dirk Mueller slides it down to the inside. Now, it'll be interesting to see how the officials view this one. Both of these teams have been told on the radio, clean your act up, boys.
We're back live with you here at Road Atlanta. Petit LeMans continues, brought to you by the totally new Mazda 6. We want to remind you, our first update of the Green Challenge. This is the world racing debut of the Green Challenge, recognizing the environmentally friendly, fuel efficient and competitive at the same time package for both manufacturers and teams alike in both prototypes and GT. At the moment, it's the creation, the 88 machine of Jamie Campbell, Walter and the boys leading the way over the Intersport racing car, both fueled by E85 cellulosic ethanol. And then we've got the first P2 car, the Penske number 7, is third at the moment. Now remember, it's both prototypes and GT cars. And in GT, it is the Drayson Barwell Aston Martin currently leading the way, the 007 machine, and all three of these in the top 3 position, all fueled by E85 as well. The 2 Corvettes doing a nice job. Here is the Green Challenge leading GT car at the moment of Johnny Cocker, Lord Paul Drayson, and Le Mans class-winning driver Darren Turner is in this trio as well. Let's get it to Brian.
Timo Bernhard just climbed out after his first stint. I know it's a lot warmer today. The balance of the car, how is it, and how's the traffic, Timo?
I mean, first of all, the balance of the car was great. We were really running strong. I mean, I think we came in a little bit earlier, a little bit ahead, and I think after the first pit stops we were leading the P2 class again, so that was fine. But with the traffic, it's not easy because they added a few cars compared to the shorter races. the previous races. So now there are more cars out on the track, and it's not easy, and you had to get around them. So, but I'm quite happy so far.
You have to change your mindset when you come into an event like this?
Oh, yes, for sure, because normally you're set on these 2 hour 45-minute races, which is more like a sprint race, and here you have to set yourself for a longer race. I mean, the cars, you can run them for 10 hours quali, but I mean, with the traffic and everything, and you have to be careful.
All right, well, they're certainly going for their championships, but somebody a little further down pit road is trying to help his team to one as well.
Well,
Chris?
Brian, Tony Kanaan tried to get his first start at Petit LeMans last year. However, Brian Herta had a crash in the first hour. That didn't happen. Tony, you just got out of the car. You took your helmet off. You're not even sweating. You're making this look easy.
No, I mean, it's not easy, but for sure the hours that I spend in the gym are paying off. So I had a lot of fun. I think it was a tough race, man. Like, you know, we're talking about off the air. We started the race. I thought, is this a 20-lap race or you know, or 10 hours? So it was a pretty good battle with the Porsches, but they're a little bit quicker on the straightaway, but we have something for them at the end of the race.
What's it going to be like with the Porsches? They seem to be running away from the Acuras right now.
Well, right now we're going to have to take advantage of traffic, and obviously they're pretty good in traffic as well. And maybe on the stops, you know, they have to change tire every time. We don't. So we gain, you know, between 12 and 13 seconds every time we do that. So that's probably going to be the only way we're going to beat them.
Well, these guys grabbed a win at Detroit, trying to go back-to-back.
I think the bad news for Tony Kanaan is a lot of the teams take 12 to 13 seconds to change tires. Penske do not. They do it in about 8. So, but still an advantage if you can double stint. But remember this, if you are about 1 second a lap slower during the course of a stint, that will cost you a lap. So if you double stint and you don't keep the performance underneath you, it's going to cost you dearly over 1 stint.
87 is on pit road. The Farnbacher Lowe's Porsche. Chris, take it away.
Well, Dirk Brenner hopping out of the car. Bryce Miller getting behind. All three of these drivers, their first time at Petit LeMans. So this team going very fast, even though these guys haven't been at Petit LeMans or Road Atlanta, except for Bryce Miller, who ran an IMSA Cup race here. But this team getting up to speed very quick, having a good run here. Good pit stop so far, just getting fuel done, getting Bryce strapped in behind the wheel. And once we get these tires done, it looks like they're done, and they'll be away.
Let's not forget, these guys are a race-winning team in the American Le Mans Series this year. The shop, the workshop is so close they could drive the race car back there. It is literally just outside of turn 1. So this would be a popular victory if Farnbacher Lowe's can win here. They've got their work cut out for them, though. We'll be back. Speed's coverage of the American Le Mans Series is brought to you by Audi. The truth is out, it's powerful, and it's available at your Audi dealer now. Audi, truth in engineering. And Audi is right at the center of one of our big storylines here at Petit Le Mans. We welcome you back. Lee Diffie along with Calvin Fish, Dorsey Schrader, Jamie Howe, Chris Neville and Brian Till, all live here at Road Atlanta in northern Georgia, and that big storyline is Audi versus Peugeot. Peugeot is on top at the moment of P1 and the race overall. Then it's Romain Dumas and Frank Montagny. Sitting third overall, second in class, the XM Satellite Andretti Green Racing Acura chasing down the Penske Porsche of Dumas. How many times have we seen this year? And since Montagny joined the circuit, he has been electrifying. Yes, made a mistake, an error, perhaps driver judgment error at Road America when the win could have been his, but he and James Rossiter ended up getting the victory and the overall victory at Detroit.
Of course, they had a big crash here in practice. Look at Frank, much faster through 5. How much will Romain defend? I don't think so. He's got to think big picture. Frank has nothing to lose. Acura versus Porsche. The 9 car is out. The Acura teams will try and help their cause. The only way they can do it is take more points away from the 7 car right now.
Did you see Montagny flashing the headlights there, just trying to distract Romain Dumas? Let's check out the straight line drag. Porsche versus Acura.
Tony Kanaan said it. We don't have the straightaway speed of the Porsches, of course. And there you see it. 3 or 4 car lengths. That makes it easy down into the braking zone, Dorsey. You do not have to defend.
Montagny was so much quicker off of turn 5 last lap. I don't know what that was about.
While we enjoy this prototype scrap, I want to give you an update on GT2 and the car that has led the majority of the race. There's been a report from Mick Asalo. He cannot get the car below 5th gear.
So its electronic shifter is stuck in 5th, and that's not good around here.
Here is Salo.
There's your slowest corner, turn 7. That's where he would need to be down around second.
Well, he's got gears now because there's no way to accelerate off turn 7 in 5th gear like that. So Porsche's getting a bit of a run on him, but he would have just blown by him if he was stuck in 5th gear. So something electronically has either fixed itself or he's reset the computer, Dorsey.
Oh, you heard him say, play around with the throttle, see if you can make it do something. Get on and off the throttle, try to jerk it in gear.
Right, so as we prepare to say farewell, let's bring you up to date how things play. Stefan Sarrazin leads P1 and overall. Dumas is your P2 class leader. Magnussen in GT1 and Bryce Miller leads GT2 as those problems continue for Mika Salo. Remember, as we leave you in just a couple of minutes' time, live streaming will continue. AmericanLeMans.com live coverage of Petit LeMans from Road Atlanta. Next, we head to Talladega for Sprint Cup qualifying, and then we have setup followed by the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is this afternoon. We'll be back with you to bring you all the storylines and action from 6:30 p.m. later on today here on Speed, this classic event, the 10th anniversary of the American Le Mans Series, and Petit Le Mans is where it all started. We look forward to your company a little later today at 6:30 here on Speed.